Welcome back to Emergent Technology. After 17 years, I decided it was time to buy a new tripod that would better fit the diverse types of shooting experiences that I'd like to do. At the recommendation of a friend, I purchased the Peak Design Travel Tripod in carbon fiber format. Now, carbon fiber isn't the most important part of what I just said, and I'll get to that in a moment. The other day I was hiking for the first time with my Peak Design tripod, and I had it attached to my Peak Design V1 sling bag under the little flap that can hold a water bottle or a tripod. Now, unfortunately, it was my first time really doing this, and I didn't have it secured down very well, and the tripod fell out onto some rocks where I was hiking. At the time, I didn't think too much of it, and the tripod seemed to function like normal, so I went on with my day. When I got home, I examined the tripod more closely and realized that the ball head mechanism and the tensioner on the mechanism was making a gritty, sandy noise. Now, this noise did not prevent or preclude the use of the ball head itself, but it did sound pretty terrible. I rewatched some Peak Design videos since they're very explanatory in terms of how to repair your tripod or other Peak Design equipment. I got to the part about ball heads where
there's not a ton that we suggest you do. Our most important thing to say is actually to not take apart the compact ball head under any circumstances. You can use a compressed air can to try and dislodge debris if there's any in there. Don't submerge the ball head or hold it under running water.
And that's all. Out of all the parts on the travel tripod, the ball head is the one that they give you the least information on how to service. Generally, this makes sense as the ball head is the most complex part of the entire tripod assembly, and they probably don't want you messing with it too much. So I contacted support, let them know, admittedly, that yes, the tripod had fallen and that it landed on the ball head itself, and hey, what can you guys help me out with here? And here's the response I got from Peak Design. The ball head is a sealed unit, so there isn't really anywhere that sand could get in. If a can of air failed to work, it's likely it took an impact and something broke on the inside, and sadly, you need a new ball head. For a moment, I took their word on this, and to their credit, they offered me a link to the customer service online store for Peak Design, where I could order replacement parts that are not normally available on the Peak Design online store. Now here's where I take issue. In the email, they kind of misrepresent the serviceability of the ball head. Not only is the ball head not sealed from the elements, it does allow particles and sand to get in there in ways that you could not dislodge them with using a simple can of compressed air. In fact, when I used compressed air, I believe it drove the sand further into the compact ball head unit, where it made the problem slightly worse. Now, I used to work in cell phone and computer repair for a living, so I am probably a little bit more adventurous than the average person would be when taking apart expensive consumer electronics. With the proper set of tools, I'm happy to open almost anything as long as I have a good exit plan. I quickly discovered that this particular unit could be assembled with 6 screws, 3 shorter and 3 somewhat longer screws, and then the head sort of pops together out of its sandwich configuration. There was no seal or gasket or adhesive to speak of, which makes Peak Design's claim of the sealed unit a little bit misleading. Yes, it is screwed shut fairly tightly, but it is not a sealed unit. Now, for clarity's sake, I just want to point out that I've already disassembled and reassembled this before I made this video, and it does work better now that I've taken it apart, cleaned out the parts, blew air through the internal components, and reassembled the unit. Again, contrary to Peak Design's customer service, the unit is not broken on the inside, and none of the internal parts were chipped, fractured, or broken in any way that I could find whatsoever. So come with me for a little bit of a teardown, and we will re-explore the internals of the Peak Design compact ball head. 3 short screws and 3 long screws, and we're inside the unit. No doubt it is complicated. There are 4 gears, 2 rings, a spring, a piston of some sort, and it's all sandwiched together with tight tolerances, with basically no detent at all within the mechanism. I count about 10 little parts that can fall out if you so much as sneeze on it. Here you can see how the tensioner mechanism works, and I've got to say it's pretty ingenious, especially as such a compact design, though it's not very fault tolerant. Now, once this is all apart, the delicacy of getting it reassembled is likely the reason why Peak Design doesn't want consumers messing with it. I used the new ball head I purchased as a reference for lining up the rings but a picture from the internet might have done just as well. A few moments later, we're all reassembled, and I feel 100% confident in reattaching my camera along with my lenses. All in all, I'm pretty happy with the design of the compact ball head and the tripod itself. However, I'm not so happy with Peak Design's willingness to jump so quickly to replacement for a very complex part that they could offer better service on. To reiterate, they do not want people executing repairs on the part of the tripod that's most critical to keeping their very expensive camera attached to it. On the other hand, the right to repair movement is becoming increasingly critical in the age of non-repairable electronics, companies like Apple, Samsung, and others making electronics, making products that are very, very hard for the average consumer to repair, much less get parts for. I would like to see Peak Design put together something as a middle ground here, like an RMA program for units that they don't want people disassembling and tearing down themselves. At the very least, Peak Design, in my opinion, should revise their approach toward communicating to customers about how these replacements are supposed to work. In the end, Peak Design did refund me for one of the 2 replacement ball heads that I purchased directly from their store. It did take a lot of back and forth between me and the company, reiterating the points that I've already talked about in this video in terms of the ball head not really being sealed and there really being nothing broken inside the ball head itself after impact. So I have 1 replacement ball head and 1 unit which has been self-repaired to my own satisfaction. I'm going to be doing a few more videos about Peak Design products as they've kind of piqued my interest, so to speak, in the last few months. I've purchased a number of pieces of gear from them, and overall I like what they're doing. However, some of their products come with some fatal design flaws that really make me reconsider their own namesake of Peak Design. Bear with me, subscribe if you don't mind. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think. What have your experiences been like with Peak Design products? Anyway, that's it for this video today. Thanks for watching Emergent Technology, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.